guess just to start, it would be cool to get a little bit of background about you and, just where do you come from? Kind of how did you maneuver into the creative space of, music videos and videography and film? I know that a lot of creatives take different routes to kind of
Mhm.
get to where they are. So, what kind of motivated you to go in that direction and kind of like what's been your journey to where you are now in the creative world?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I Being creative was always a part of my childhood. So I think that's always like my initial answer. There was always like music was always encouraged. And we were like pretty crafty kids. My mom was a super crafty lady. And we just, I don't know, we didn't have a lot of TV. And so we are just kind of like running around being creative little babies. Um, And then I went to Ithaca College. I had to pick something, and I was interested enough in photography. So I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in for photo. And in the beginning, I was I was like, you know what? No, I'm like strict photo. This is what I'm doing. For some reason, I was like, this is my thing. This is what I do. And then I took there's like that mandatory intro class to film, and then I took another one just for shits and gigs, and I was like, holy shit, this is super cool. I want to do this. There were a couple films that really inspired me by other students. I was like, I want to be around these minds and make this a part of my education. So I switched into it was like the BFA program, uh, and I started freelancing when I was a senior as a concert photographer and kind of other like musician media needs, and a lot of that came from dating my boyfriend, who I'm still with. His name is TJ, and it started a reggae night actually. There was a reggae night at the range, and that was every Wednesday, and that's kind of where I got my start, just going there every week and photographing. These bugs are like just all over the place. And from there, people just kind of kept asking me to do work, and that kind of just set things in motion.
So, were you always kind of drawn towards the visual side of creative stuff? Like, I know that like I work a lot of music, and so I've always been kind of drawn to kind of that, but I've also definitely had kind of an appreciation for film. Like I love movies, I love like music videos, I love like the visual arts in general, but I've always been more of a music person in general. So were you always kind of more of a visual kind of creator?
I mean, I think so. I think very visually, and that uh, it's kind of how I'm seeing the world. Is like if you tell me a story about something, I'm visualizing it happening. Sometimes even certain words will have a visual component. Um, Even my dreams are just like hella cinematic. Like this morning, I was like stuck in a. I was trying to get up. I was trying not to snooze because that's a problem for me, and it was just like there were like inserts and there were like flashbacks, and it was just like a plot. Um, so I think that what interests me is just because it's just how my brain already is kind of wired to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you find yourself kind of just going with the flow when it comes to like if you're working on a music video project and you need to kind of create a set or create like a certain shot, does it come to you in the moment, or are you one of the kind of people that kind of pre-plans what you do? Like where do you find you have the most success?
Do you mean on set?
Yeah.
I mean I love planning. Sorry, there are like all these flies have gotten in and they're so distracting. Um, might have to like do something about this. Um, I'm such a fan of planning. There is just that if you have something to work from, it's harder for things to go wrong. You know that your bases are being covered. You're like, okay, we have all the shots that we need. If something on set happens and you're like, oh my gosh, we have to get this shot, or there's a great idea that we haven't thought about until we're like now because we're in the space and we're with the people and everybody's like breathing and alive together, then sure, write it in, find a way. So it's definitely a blend. I think the last music video that I did with Griffin, we had one concept and it just was no good, so we had to toss it. But the other one kind of started with just it was just an idea for a shot, And I was like, what if we did this? And we kind of just workshop through that. And
Yeah.
then we're like, okay, this is okay. We've kind of created a scene now. And what other scenes can we make? These flies are horrible. Oh my goodness. Let me close this door.
I feel so bad. You got like all these bugs all around you.
It's crazy. If there were bees, I could say, oh, it's a flower thing. I could make at least like a cute joke about my name being Lilac, and
Yeah.
we'll see if they go away though. I think they're here to
No,
stay.
Ithaca gets crazy with the bugs sometimes.
It's crazy. And I say I live in the woods. It's like 15 minutes from downtown Ithaca, but it's like, you'll hear a rooster out there. You hear like foxes screaming in the night and stuff. So it's nice.
Yeah. Have you always lived in Ithaca? Or did you just stay there after school?
Yeah, I just stayed here after school. I was raised in France. Well, I was born in DC, but I have no memory of it. I was raised in France and we moved to Syracuse when I was 8. Um, and I remember when I was in high school, I wanted to go far away for school, like just far as could be. And my guidance counselor was like, there's a school, it's like Ithaca College, and they have a great like film program, a great photo program, and they have this LA program, and you could go to LA and be on sets and do all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, yeah, whatever. Like I'll apply and see what happens. And they, Ithaca ended up giving me the most money out of everybody, so it was pretty clear, and it was like I thought that the town was cool and the campus was beautiful, and so I decided to go there and I ended up staying. I didn't really have enough money to move after graduation, um, just because I was like putting myself through school and there's just no leftover money for that. So I was like, let me just hang here until I save up the money to move. And then the pandemic hit 7 months after we graduated, and I said, like, fuck that. I'm not moving to a city right now. And I have no regrets about any of it, which is really nice.
Yeah, so and you worked all through school?
Yeah, I mean, I always had either a job on campus. I worked at PPEX, which for people who like might be watching who don't know is the equipment cage at Park. And I worked at like the dining hall, or I worked at restaurants in town. I think by my senior year, I think the first semester I had a restaurant job, and then I was working for PPEX, and I was also freelancing on top of all the school stuff. And I remember I think I was at 18 credits or something that you shouldn't be doing your senior year because you should,
Yeah.
in theory, have already taken everything. But because I switched over into the BFA as a sophomore, I just had to take, more classes to cover everything. And so yeah, it was busy, busy, busy.
And what was your experience when it comes to like working? I have my own opinions about like developing work ethic and like young people like having jobs and having like routine, and I think it's like really important like as you are like developing to either have like a strong school kind of program that people are in or work like just to give you that kind of mentality of being able to like work at something. But what was your experience like having all those things to manage at once? I think that can be kind of a lot for a young person to do. So
Yeah, I guess it just was so I didn't really have an option
yeah.
that I didn't really think about what it could be like otherwise. And it wasn't, I mean, it didn't feel like it wasn't normal. I think at Ithaca College, there were just a lot of people. I was finding myself meeting a lot of people saying, like, you pay your own phone bill? Like, that's crazy. Do your parents
Yeah.
not? You're just bullshit stuff like that. I'm just like, okay, we are living in different realities. Um, and so I don't know. I have this memory of me. I wasn't able to afford this textbook for it was like maybe you took it logic. It was like one of
Yeah.
those core required classes, and I couldn't afford the textbook, so I was like, whatever, like I'll just take good notes or do what I need to do. And it just wasn't enough. Like all the homework was out of the textbook, like everything. It was just
Yeah.
basically didn't need a teacher because it was just all the textbook teaching you.
It's like, why is the teacher even there? Yeah.
But all in all, I mean, all in all, it was fine. Like I loved when I worked at a restaurant off campus. I worked at a place called Viva, they just had their last day in the actual space, and now they've moved across the street. But I loved having that separation. I would just like take the bus down from campus for my shift and I could just leave I didn't have to think about school. It was a completely different group of people going through, non-campus stuff, not,
Yeah.
like the conversations were just different. So it was I actually really liked it.
Yeah, I think that, a lot of people that are only in school and they do nothing outside of school, whether it's extracurriculars or a job, like it's really easy to get in your head and kind of become obsessed with that and for that to become your life. Like I know I'll meet people sometimes, even in careers, and like they'll only have one passion that they care about or only one experience. And
Mhm.
while it's valuable, I think, to become like really good at one thing and to kind of just dive into that work, I think that sometimes it can be limiting in that, you don't gain any kind of depth. You don't have more than one experience. You don't have more than one thing that you can talk about. And I think that when you're in school, being exposed to different kind of people, like not just in the education system, I think that's a really good thing. And yeah, like even if it's just working at a restaurant, like the conversations are going to be different. The environment's going to be different. The way that you think about life is going to change because you're in an environment that kind of fosters, I don't want to say more well-rounded ideas, but it just seems like you become a better person just by, not just being exposed to diverse ideas, but being exposed to like truly diverse, like socioeconomic people. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's just good to, I don't know, I just, if you are able to get yourself into different circles and have just different experiences, yeah, it does make you a better rounded person. Um, and it helps in every aspect of your life, even professionally, those experiences just add up. And I don't know, I think they do, like, it's definitely shaped my personality, which my personality is half of the reason why I get hired to do stuff. When you're a creative, it's almost like it's equally, if not maybe a little bit more important than the actual skill itself.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I talk about it a lot with, younger musicians who ask like, what should I do, to like better my career? And I'm like, stop worrying, like stop putting 100% of your effort into music. Cause like you need to be putting at least 50% of your effort into like meeting people and
Yeah.
like learning about the career, learning about what the career actually takes. Because if you only get really good at, you know, the creative job, you're never going to get those ins in the door. You're never going to get, the connections that you need to get your work out there or to get, the freelance jobs. And I think that's a big missed opportunity. I think even on the education system where like there's a little bit of a disconnect between like perfecting your craft and like encouraging people to just make connections. Like we understand that you go to school to meet other kids and to make those kind of connections, but I think a lot of the times the professional connections are almost lost. And I think those make really, I mean, if you think about your career, like I'm sure that you would agree that that's probably the difference between you being able to pay rent and not being able to pay rent is probably like the connections that you make and your personality. And yeah,
Yeah. And oh my God, these fucking flies. Yeah, it's so important. And I wish, I think there was kind of an attitude at Ithaca College, like people just seemed very separate from the town and kind of treated the town as if there was nothing they could get from it. And they
yeah,
just couldn't be more wrong. And I feel really lucky to have learned it before I actually left school and then to be learning it again and more by living here. And the thing is I don't know, I just think ultimately it was a good move because there's less competition here for what I want to do. So I just get more work. Where, I don't know, I could be wrong about this, but in New York, everybody wants to be a photographer. It seems like everybody wants to be a
yeah, yeah,
everybody wants to be a musician, like,
yeah.
and I would maybe advise young people to go where you can actually practice doing the thing. Um, but again, someone else is going to do it differently and find their way, and all is going to be well. But I don't have a lot of regrets about my path so far.
Yeah. And I think also, I mean, you are actively making those relationships while you're still in school. and like
Yeah.
starting the process while you were still in school. And I think that's like a big advantage because then you already have like a community around you that you know you can work with. I think a lot of people end up not doing those things, and then they feel like, well, in order to make those connections and in order to like form those relationships, I have to go to New York or I have to go to LA, you
Yeah,
know?
which is so silly because like all the coolest things I've done have come from people that I've met here. And a lot of people that I know here that have done cool things, it's all like Ithaca is just super connected. And I don't know, I don't know. I'm like constantly surprised of like, I got to do this thing. I'm like, how did you get to do this cool thing? Well, this person that I met here knew this other person and they needed someone to do this. Like my boyfriend TJ has toured the world being a musician and he lives in Ithaca. He did live in New York, but I want to say like his bigger gigs have come from people that connections that he made here in Ithaca.
Yeah.
And it's easy to foster because you can go, at least for me, like it's just super lucky. I can go somewhere and I can see somebody that I know. Sometimes I just like I don't even make plans with people. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go to this place. Whoever I run into, like that's who I'll hang out with, and it's cool. And there's a ton of creative people, and really connections is everything. So I think you're so right when you say like you can't just like huddle at home and work on your craft all the time.
Yeah.
Just you have to make time to share it with people, to go out and just make friends. And friends is a lot of, just go out and make friends. People, there's so much you can do with your friends.
So true. Do you think that like places like Ithaca are, I mean, you say they're kind of like underrated. Do you think as a whole, those like smaller, I don't want to say college towns, but like artistic communities like around the US and even like abroad, do you think they're underrated when it comes to having a career in the creative arts?
I mean, I who's to say? I've met people that are doing things that you would never believe in. I'm like, oh wow, you live in Ithaca? Like, oh, this crazy successful artist who makes really nice living off of art lives 20 minutes from me and he shows in Tokyo and Paris everywhere. Like it's, and I've met people, I met somebody who is now a writer on in television series and she like that was an Ithaca connection and I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I have a full answer to that. I guess I'll let you know. Like catch me in like 5 or 10
Need time.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also, you need time because who's to say whether like your experience with like you're in a not as saturated area, right? If
Yeah.
the like benefit of that will maybe who knows if it will increase or fall off as time goes on. Like maybe as time goes on, you maybe need like a place with just simply more opportunity once you have kind of an established thing going that's like you feel is more solid versus when you're still starting out. I don't know, it feels very scary, at least to me, like being a young person. Like right now, I'm like pretty rooted given like my injuries kind of forced me to, like, I'm not thinking about moving to LA or New York, right? Because I have to be at home. But,
And where's
you know,
home
f-
base?
I'm outside of Boston. So
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
still like near a city, but like Boston is not like a music city, really. It's not like a creative city.
Well, I feel like it totally is. I mean, I don't really know it, but I feel like I've heard that it's pretty poppin'.
Well, in certain ways, it is. For music, I think it's a little bit stale. But yeah, for other creative arts, I think it's not like it. Definitely for film, it has a lot more things going on. It's definitely a popular place for like shoots. There's like a lot of shoots that are always going on in the city. But yeah, I think that I don't know. In general, it can be a little bit scary for young people to want to like you want to move someplace to get the connections, but you're scared because it's a place that there's a lot of risk to go there. And the rent's so expensive. Like there's so much competition. So I feel like once you're a little bit more established, like who knows? Like you said, maybe 5 years from now, you'll feel like you need a city like that that could offer just simply a higher volume of opportunities as a whole.
Yeah, yeah, I'm curious to see what will happen. And I think it'll be very clear when that needs to happen, if it needs to happen. But kind of, I don't know, I guess my like secret master plan is that I get traveled to places,
Yeah.
that I'm able to work from anywhere. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely with the change of technology, I feel like there's a lot more opportunities for like filmmakers in general. Like you don't have to lug as much gear as you did 15, 20 years ago to be able to record videos or to be able to shoot on sets. There's still a lot of gear, right? There's still way more gear than a lot of other, careers, but you can also rent. There's a lot more opportunities to be able to rent
Yeah.
out gear. In
Yeah.
general, things are more like accessible financially. Like you don't need to spend $100,000 on a camera. You can get a very good camera for, you know, still expensive as shit, but you know,
But you can, I mean, the rental houses are great.
yeah.
You can make that happen for a weekend. If, if you really want to.
Yeah, and every
You
city
don't have to
has
be
them.
certified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned sent you a little questionnaire. You mentioned that therapy is like a big part of the get shit done process. So so tell me a little bit about what you mean there. I definitely have my own ideas about therapy and its place and how, we can be more effective day to day when it comes to just being in the right mental. So how do
Yeah.
you describe that,
This is just a way for me to just advocate for therapy at any chance that anytime I'm like handed a microphone, I'm like, go to therapy. Just because it is the base of everything. And if you don't have your mind in order, it just, at least for me in my experiences, it is so hard to get shit done. And I just can't do it. Like January this past year, it was horrible. I wasn't doing anything. I couldn't, I was very debilitated. I couldn't really like afford therapy, so I just stopped going. And it was just when, they just, all that stuff kind of compiles together. And I find in the times where I prioritize my well-being and prioritize my mental health, everything else just kind of comes together. There's just a direct correlation in my experience. And I just can't recommend it enough. And it just, it gives you tools to cope with all your shit, to cope with all the past stuff. But then also it just makes you a more self-aware person. And I just think you're just a better teammate, and a better communicator. And I don't know, just all of the positive things.
Yeah. I think that you're 100% right, especially when it comes to like all the different parts of your life. It's easy to kind of have a handle on one thing, but everyone has so many things going on from relationships to, their career to, their personal goals, their long-term goals, their, mental health issues or whatever is going on. So having a way, whether it's therapy or some other way to help you kind of organize all those things and think
Mhm.
through them, is really helpful to, I think everyone can benefit from them.
Yeah, and we don't know what we don't know about ourselves. There's certain, we just can't be aware of 100%. And we have blind spots, and a therapist, a good one, is going to help you see those things and work on those things. And yeah, I mean, I just can't recommend it enough. There's different methods out there, so I'm sure that there's one for everyone. Um, so yeah, if you're someone who maybe has wanted to try it or has never even thought about it, maybe think about doing it and just see how your life changes.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it, like for me personally, like after my accident, I like went through a period of like kind of like not really wanting to do much creatively and
Hmm.
kind of being very unmotivated. And I think a lot of people go through similar situations, not for like the same reason, but just because life kind of hits you in different ways. And it's easy to feel like there's a brick wall in front of you. And simply organizing your thoughts and like working through things in a logical way that may not be easy for you to find can like literally just like open all the doors. Like just mentally for you to be able to work.
Yeah. Yeah, and also it just offers you a shift in perspective. We get so caught up in our own things and I mean whatever it is for whichever individual, it's like there's this thing and sometimes it can be hard to just see it differently. Especially if it's something from childhood that is like just been reinforced for the 18 years you were living with your parents or whatever your situation was. It comes up in subtle ways and we're not always aware of them because we're so used to them. The shift in perspective is, a key component to healing, I think. And yeah,
Yeah. We
yeah,
also live in a world where like everything is just so fast paced in general and different than it feels like it was even from when I was growing up. Like the
yeah,
world just so it's constant, this constant barrage of just information and work and just it's nonstop. There's social media, your phone, checking everything all the time. You're getting blasted with like all this information. And there's like it doesn't feel like there's really as much time to like just stop and think for yourself. And
yeah,
so I think because of that, like we need to start relying on just kind of a better approach if you're going to keep up with all the rest of that stuff. I think it's also reasonable to say like, I'm going to take a step back from using, you know, this kind of social media or that thing, like, and maybe you need someone to help you figure out what it is, right? Like you said, take a step back and get that second, viewpoint of like, what is it that's causing me to go down this negative spiral, or what is
yeah,
it that's, putting this brick wall in front of me? Like maybe it's as simple as not being exposed to like all these people online that look like they're doing so great and they're making
yeah,
me feel bad. Or maybe it's, whatever else it is. Or, it could be something like you said in your past, but definitely getting that second perspective can help people address and figure out what that thing really is.
yeah. I mean, and social media use is just it's so bad for our attention. I remember
Yeah.
the first time I said I'm gonna take, I think it might have only been a week, but it was no more than two. I said I'm gonna just take this off. I think I still had my messaging, like I didn't like fully delete the app. I like removed it from my home screen. So just because that's how I get gigs. It's like, you know what? I'll be really mindful about how I'm checking my messages so I don't miss out on an opportunity. But other than that, there was no scrolling. And I swear to you, I was like smart again. I was sharp. My recall was good. I wasn't putting my keys down and forgetting about where they were. I was just sharp and I was like, wow, okay, this is who I actually am. But it just takes over our minds. And I think there are ways to have more control of it, but people have to be aware that of their habit in the first place.
Definitely.
So like for me, I'll unlock my phone to go text somebody, and next thing I'm scrolling through Instagram because I like literally automatically will go through and just hit it, and then I start. It's insane. It's mindless, and then there I am on Instagram. Scroll. It's just insane, and
And it
there's
can suck you in for hours.
it's crazy. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really really crazy, and I could go on a whole rant about why this specific thing needs to be taught to children in health class in high school, or any child like 6 or plus, because even 6-year-olds are on technology, but just the awareness of their usage because the companies aren't gonna they don't give a fuck about us.
Yeah. No, they care about money 100%. They don't care at all. And like even when you're on Instagram, it's like at this point it's not even like it was 10 years ago on Instagram where it would be pictures of your friends. Now half of it is literally just ads like trying to get you to buy shit.
Yeah,
And I remember like after my accident, cuz I couldn't use technology. I was just like I would watch like the TV in the hospital for like a month or whatever, but I wasn't really actively using like social media or Twitter or whatever all the time. But then, um, you know, I like looked back at my phone eventually and I was like, wow, I do not miss this at all. This is so bad. And since then, I use Instagram to respond or like send a message, but I don't look at people's pictures. I don't use it. I find it to be like a complete waste of time. like I'll use Twitter. I don't know why. I think it's like it's probably like just like the brain rot inside me that like, you know, I think part of the reason I use Twitter is like you said for work and for connecting a
Yeah.
lot of the people that are doing kind of in my area of music and music NFTs. They're, you know, on Twitter, and you know that's where a lot of that goes on. So that's why I'm really on Twitter. But if it wasn't for that, like I probably wouldn't be on Twitter. I just think like whenever I get on these things, I can feel myself being sucked in to
Yeah.
wanting to use it. And like
Yeah.
now this whole thing with like TikTok and YouTube shorts and everything's going back to this like Vine format of 7 seconds, and the attention span is going back down like you said, and it's like reprogramming our brains to like just not think. Like you forget things, you can't pay attention, you're addicted to it. Like you need to
Yeah.
get your fix, right? You wake up in the morning and you need to get on it. You need to look and see what's going on. You need to check tick, it's tongue twister, check tick tock. And it's crazy. It's, you know,
It's insane.
yeah.
It's insane. What else do I have to say? I feel like I could talk about this for. There's so much to say that it's all like going blank in my mind. But it's the habit of disengaging that is being solidified over and over again. And I don't know, it's hard. There's different solutions. You can put timers. You can move your app around your screen so the muscle memory is lost. Or I mean, I don't know.
So
I don't think.
you mentioned trying to teach kids at a young age about like the dangers about these things. But what like when these kids like all their friends are using it, right? Like a lot of their parents just put a screen in front of them at home, and like cuz that's easy, right? It's an easy way to not have to play with your kids or not have to, you
Yeah,
know,
I'm just like, I'm
engage with
cooking
them.
here. Go do this.
Yeah.
Which
So
I
like
understand.
what's the solution though?
I mean, so parents have to be educated as well. Because
Yeah.
I think there's a generation of parents who they also didn't grow up with technology the way we have. We can relate to being teenagers and going on Facebook, having mean things said to us, or the whole like, we can actually relate. So when we have kids, it'll be a little bit different. I mean, the world's going to keep changing, but we'll at least
Hopefully.
have that, have some reference of it. But parents, I think they're naive to what's happening. Those of them who didn't grow up with anything like this. And so when they say like, why can't you get off your phone? Get off your phone. They don't understand. Some of them, I'm sure, don't understand that their kids are literally addicted to it. And just because it's not something that they can eat or drink or take, whatever, it's
Yeah.
harder to wrap your mind around how that can be addicting. But I think just I don't know if that's mass information for me. I think about it a lot, so to me, it's something that's like very obvious. But I am aware that there's people who just might not know. Um, but I think, and maybe I don't know, maybe this is something that is being talked about, but it should be taught in schools, like a mandatory thing. Maybe a part of health class, maybe a whole class separately. But I don't know. I worry for kids. I nanny, and so I am around kids on a regular basis, and I worry for them.
Yeah, no, 100%. I used to work with kids like, you know, in camp and in basically like school program kind of settings. And yeah, you see the same thing like, you know, they're like little kids and they have trouble letting go of the phone like when they get dropped off, or, you know, you can tell that their parents are just kind of like absent when there's no excuse. Like a lot of the camps and like, you know, systems that I was, you know, a part of were like wealthy like places where there was really no excuse for those kids not to have like the best environment possible for them at home, with like people paying attention, like people making sure that they were well rounded and respectful and like having like the care and attention that they needed. But it's odd that like I found those environments to be fostering some of the worst like relationships between parents and kids, and like
Interesting.
worst attitude of children, versus like when I would be in a situation where it would be like children of less off families, like not as well off, like the kids would be better behaved often, like they'd be less distracted. And it was weird because you would really expect the opposite. But I think that there's this kind of weird thing that happens where people, they get too sucked into their careers and they just like forget that they need to be parents, or like they think that they can just spend money and like have someone else be the parents of their kids.
Yeah.
um
I mean, as a nanny, I feel like I've raised some kids.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm sure you know some families that are, using as you as a supplement, like just like to help, and then some families that like basically rely on you to parent, right? They're absent.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting perspective to have. Luckily, I don't think nobody that I've been with has been so extreme that like, oh, they're never home. They're like
Yeah,
absent parents, and this is like really my child. I have friends who have been in that position, but I personally haven't experienced it in that extreme way. But I think, I mean, I don't really know. It's all I can say is not like no matter where you are on the socioeconomic spectrum is just like you cannot give your child everything that they want. And I think
definitely.
kids who grow up in low income environments, that's a hard lesson that you learn from the start. It's just like we can't afford that, and you see it too, Why is it we don't have a car and my friend has a car, okay, we can't afford that. So you kind of learn you're not going to get everything that you want, and you have to work for the things that you want. And I don't know, I've experienced some children who do. They just get handed the things that they want almost immediately, and they're impatient and temperamental. And I think there is a correlation between those things. And so I'm actually not surprised to hear, the story that you're saying about this camp that you went to, that these kids from this demographic tended to be, this way.
Yeah, there's worse.
Yeah.
Like in every way. Like it sucks to say, you know what I mean? But it's literally just, it's true. And the sad thing is those kids are gonna go on to be successful adults. Like they're gonna get all the opportunities. They're gonna go to all the good schools. Like, and they're just gonna be spoiled, unfriendly. Like I don't know. I'm scared because I don't see much of a path. Like who's gonna teach them? Who's gonna help them? Is like the question that I ask myself sometimes.
I mean, I do believe in somebody's ability to learn and change, and I don't know. I think
You're
it
more
just
optimistic than me.
I think maybe a little bit, but it also, I mean, I don't know. It's what am I trying to say? I got distracted from an email that popped up.
No worries.
I'm gonna silence my phone. But you're right, though. There's more opportunity for people who are better off, because when you have nobody to fall on financially, it is harder to take a risk. It's harder to, I don't know. It's almost like it's harder to breathe. And again, like to me, it was such a normal thing. But then I started meeting people and hanging out with people where like they don't have to, like they have somebody they can fall back on if they need it. And like now I kind of have it having this like very steady partner that I have. We can lean on each other for different things. And if I was really in the hole, like he could help me. And that's a first time I don't know what that's like. So it's kind of a neat experience. But people who like, it's harder to get to the top when you can't afford a car. It's harder to get to the top when you can't afford like groceries to have proper nutrition. And when you're like, oh, I should really have this one lens would like help me so much, but I got to make it work with this other thing that I have. You just have to be more resourceful, and I don't know, but it's something I think about a lot. Like people at the top stay at the top for a reason. They can pay people and have somebody do the stocks trading for them. Like you're staying on top when that's happening. So I don't know. I mean, it's such a world. There's so many topics we could like veer off into, but in
And
short,
I'm happy to veer off into them. I'm like now I want to talk about like, is the American dream even still a thing? Like, it's like you're getting my, marbles rolling.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we could money, yeah. money psychology is a real thing. Anyone
Yeah.
watching this who like has, I mean, everybody has a relationship with money, and probably some kind of like money trauma, as is being said, that can be unpacked and worked on and all of that.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned though, like you and your partner being able to like rely on each other for like financial things. And I think that like that's part of like a healthy like relationship is feeling like a mutual, ability to lean on the other person in some way and not feel like it's demanded of you or like required. Like you don't want to be in a situation where, you are reliant on the other person financially and you cannot leave them because
Yeah.
like you're reliant on them to be able to live somewhere or whatever it is. Or even like if they're paying everything for you, that can often feel, obviously there are people that want to be in that kind of relationship, but if you don't want to be in that kind of relationship, to be in that kind of relationship can be very stuck, and vice versa. If you feel like you have to provide for the other person, that can also feel in a very, paralyzing position. So I think that it's good to encourage like kids from a young age to seek out like relationships, especially that, result in them being in mutually kind of understood and, uh, just benefiting mutually and being happy mutually and not
Yeah.
feeling stuck or like not feeling like you owe the other person anything.
But
Because,
there's like it's there's dynamics that come with it all,
yeah,
and I don't know, have you ever been in like a longer term or relationship?
yeah,
Yeah.
but
So
but
you can,
not like not when I was like living on my own, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Which
Yeah.
makes I think a big difference, right?
It definitely does. Like moving in together makes a difference. It's we it's just this, at least for me, I was like, this is just so weird. You you feel like my family. It's like that same, it's a very similar dynamic, but it's different. I'm like, you're not, but I don't know how to explain it. But so all that stuff, like especially for me, like my family, we were a little bit dysfunctional in some ways. And so but that it'll
I
spill
think we all are.
into, yeah, I mean, oh, all of us, everybody's parents kind of like fucks them up a little
Yeah.
bit. And siblings and all that. And I'm a one of four, all born a year apart. So we're just like this little army of crazy children. Um, but that, yeah, that stuff spills into relationships, and you just have to unpack it. I love therapy. Go to relationship therapy. I do that right now. I've been doing it with my boyfriend. We're better for it.
Yeah. So you're one
Yeah.
of four. Did all of you kind of go in the same direction or are you all over the place or what's been the trajectory or like, do you see similarities in your family? What's the psychology in there?
Oh, that's a fun question. I mean, there's so many different levels, but it's interesting to see how everybody has walked away from the experience with something slightly different. But then there are similarities too. Like if, my sister has like something in her relationship happening, I'm like, you know what? I actually have the same thing, and this isn't about the relationship. Like this is about this family dynamic that we grew up with, and we like can unpack that together. I think my brother is still like figuring out what he's interested in, but like me and my sisters are all interested in creative fields. So
Interesting.
yeah, and like my dad was always encouraging of creativity, and my mom as well. Like they
What did
never.
your parents do?
My mom is like the best. Not even a nanny. She's like, I guess technically a teacher, but the kids are really young, so it's like you're kind of caregiving. But she works with kids, and my dad has done like so many different like odd jobs, but at heart is a musician. Um, and actually, he was my introduction to cameras and stuff. He always had a camera around when we were kids. Like when I would draw photos of him, he had a camera in his hand because it was just always around. Um, so yeah, that's where that kind of came from.
And so you're in film and your sisters, are they in film too or what do they do?
So my older sister is into comedy and comedy writing and acting and stand up. And my younger sister is into producing and DJing. Uh, and it's
That's
fun.
cool.
She lives in Ithaca. Yeah, it's cool. She lives in Ithaca and um, has played, some bigger like Cornell parties, and I get to go and take photos of her, and it's super fun. And yeah, it's good. It's weird. We're just so at the beginning of everything, like there's
Yeah.
all this pressure of like, ugh, 30's so old, and it's really not. Like I'm about to be 26 next week. I'm like, holy shit, 30's like gonna be here before I know it. But we're all like just so in the beginning of everything. I'm just so like, even just talking to you, like I know we didn't really talk, like we didn't really know each other in school, but I'm like,
Yeah.
where is Lucas gonna go? I'm so curious to see where
Yeah.
everybody is gonna go. That's so neat.
Absolutely. Me too. And so, come to think of it, so you and, one of your sisters who's DJing, you're both kind of in fields where I would kind of expect there to be pretty male dominated, like from, like most DJs are guys. There are like a lot of girl, or not a lot, but there are a few girl DJs who are like really dope, but like not that many. And like in film, like most of the music video producers that I know of, at least like the big ones, are guys. So like
Yeah.
it's interesting that you're both kind of going into fields that are more like male dominated. Although I think a lot of those trends are changing. Like especially with our generation, it seems like the molds are being kind of broken or like flip flopped in a lot of fields. Like apparently now, like more women are becoming doctors than men. And like, what does it feel like to be in? Did you ever feel like there was any pressure in that field that you're in, or your
Mm.
sister? Like, what's your take on that? Like the whole gender kind of area of work.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, totally in a way. There's also the age thing, I will say. It's only not only being a woman, but being a younger female is a dynamic in its own. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I can speak to. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I've been hit on in places where I shouldn't have been. I've been maybe doubted because of how I look, and maybe my personality, definitely, my gender plays into it. Um, and my sister, same thing too. And especially with stage, like now that I've gotten into music and I'm doing more, well, I'm doing more and more, hopefully, performances like that. To me, I don't know, because when you're like the concert photographer, there's not many others. So it's almost like I see that less. But what for me, being a concert photographer, seeing all the men on stage all the time, constantly, that it almost impacts me more. Like we have friends, mutual friends that are on sets in New York, and like I can't relate to that. I don't, if I want a set, I'll just make my own. And so I can't relate to the gender dynamics there, although I'm sure it's uneven. I see what I see the most is males dominating the stage. And don't get me wrong, like I love my guys, like a lot of them are my friends, and men are people too, obviously. Like they should be able to do what they want, which is great. But also like we need to make space for women, and I think that that's what motivates me a lot to put myself on stage because of the looking that I've done as a concert photographer. I'm just like, oh my God, this is a great band, but like again, it's just all men all the time having fun on stage, and I love it, but I am down to like occupy that lane and kind of blaze that trail. And so my sister probably can relate to that being on stage as well.
Yeah. I think that's a good motivation to have, like to want to like break a mold. Like for an individual, I think that can be super motivating, but also probably unmotivating if you don't have the same amount of drive as like you do. But how much responsibility do you think that shift in dynamics? You're saying like you want to see a shift. How much responsibility is like on the individual, and how much on the responsibility is like the system itself? Like at the end of the day, people do make a decision for themselves of like what career they're going to go into. And like obviously that has to do with the school that you're in,
Hmm.
and maybe the school is pushing more of this on women, more of this on men, but at the end of the day, like you decide to do what you want because that's what you want to do, right? And so I'm wondering, what's your take on like how much responsibility do you put on the individual to change these kind of like market trends of like gender differences, and how much responsibility is on like the system? Like, where do you put more responsibility?
That's interesting. I think because the system is fucked up, it's a lot harder to lose motivation and to feel like you're beaten down when you're dealing with a system that's like not made for you. Like I could say like, you know what? I'm sick of being hit on by these people on stage or whoever, and there's always like that flirty dynamic or whatever. Flirty. Like I don't know, it's hard. I don't really know. It's I encourage people to not give up and to keep with their power in the world and just make their own thing happen. If it's not working in the system, make your own thing happen. But it's very easy to say that, and it's hard to continue on sometimes when it's just you have all these things pushing onto you, and so I don't. That's why I don't. It would never be full responsibility of the individual. Um, People, venues, I mean, whoever it is, whoever's doing the hiring, have power. They're paying for a service or paying for a band or paying for a photographer, and I don't know, they can choose. But then, I don't know. I want to say like, oh, well, they can choose and they should choose wisely. But then again, I don't really know. Because this is something I talk to TJ a lot about. I'm like, women on stage, women on stage, women on stage. Like, let's, like, why? And he's like, I'm struggling to find bands to do it. He's like, I'm struggling to find bands. A lot of the bands are like males. He's like, I'm trying. Like, every time it's just like, I'm trying. I'm doing my best. And
Yeah.
um, I think it's got to be a greater systematic thing. I don't know. It's a good question. I don't have the full answer to it. I wish I did.
I wonder if like, I mean, something that I think about is, I think the major driver right now, at least that I see in like schools and like with young kids, is they want to be like celebrities, or they want to be like the people that they see that are famous or that are making a lot of money or that are cool or whatever it is. And they're not going to want to break those molds, right? I think, for example, let take an average young guy, right? Are they going to want to go into fashion design? Like, even if there are like male fashion designers, like, they're probably not going to want to go in that direction. Not because there isn't the avenue for them, because there
Hmm.
is, but like the average guy isn't going to want to go into there because like that's not the kind of person that they want. Like, they don't see that as like a representation of like them, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
I think that that weird kind of, it's kind of this self encouraging system where like, because the people at the top are a certain way, that encourages people that are like them to want to be that way or want to go into that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, that's why representation is so important. I feel like I've like stumbled on some like social media debates about this of like, why is this, we don't need this. And it's, yes, we do 100%. Uh, it makes me, what you're saying, reminds me of this time. I don't even remember where I was, some show somewhere. And the videographer was like a female. She's like this white female who was probably around my age, and kind of, smaller in stature like me. And she just was like so focused and just like doing her thing. And I think my initial reaction, even though I hate to admit it, I was like a little bit jealous and like doubtful,
Yeah.
which is so stupid, but it's something that is like worked into our brains, is to like doubt women, is like, and it sucks, but I can admit it. That was my first thought. And then I was like, shut the fuck up. I was like, this is amazing. This is great. That could be you. And now it is, and it's, yeah, it's essential. What you're saying is essential. We need people of all kinds doing all the things, and we need
Yeah.
to see it.
it's difficult at the same time because although like I'm 100% with that, I'm like personally very against like I don't want to call it the diversity hire of like just for diversity's sake, but like I'm against basically like letting go of your standard in order to like put someone in that position like in general. Like I would obviously make exception for certain things, but I think that lowering standards is like bad, and I think that there's you can always find someone that's different
Hmm.
to fill those shoes that's just as qualified. You just maybe need to look harder, and I think the majority of the reason why you have these positions that are like it seems like they're lowering the bar is simply because companies are lazy, right? They're not going to wait for the really good woman. They're just going to take, or the really good man in a field where like that person isn't necessarily, the status quo. They're going to just take the first one that's
I mean,
available.
I don't really, I listen, I don't really know. I hope that that's not what's happening, but I
Yeah.
would imagine that that's not what's happening. But again, I haven't worked in a company. I haven't worked at every company in America to be able to like say a statement like that. I, I would be I would be disappointed and surprised if that was the majority of what was happening. But I don't know, I kind of have a hard time believing that people would hire somebody just because of the gender and it helps numbers as opposed to like, oh, we're just going to hire you because you're a race that we need for like you have to be qualified to get a job, And so I don't know, I've heard some of my white friends say like, oh, I should have gotten that job or gone into that school, but I'm white and that's why I didn't get it. And I'm just like, that's not why. Like, that's not, like there's 1,000%, it's 1,000% possible that this other person was just more qualified than you, regardless of anything. And I think, yeah, I think this is an argument that comes up, and I just am like, to what benefit is there to hire someone that can't do the job? They can't do it. Like for me, like I am gonna have, I'm starting with this production company, and I would like to have a lot of women on the team. But am I gonna get a woman just because she's a woman to be in my band or in my production team? Like, no, I'm gonna do it because you know how to do the job, and this is great. Um, A and B, just having just different perspectives. Like when you're on a set and it's all men, like it is a vibe. It is undeniably a vibe. Um, Good, bad, I don't know. It's a specific thing. When you start to mix perspectives and mix people and mix backgrounds, it's just the best. And there's a clear effect. You can't hire the same person for all the jobs because then you're getting one perspective. And that's a problem with the film and TV industry and why we see the same stories over and over again. It's like, oh, here's a story about like a white boy doing this thing in the socioeconomic group is because when you have the same people writing from that perspective, that's what they know, and that diversity is really important.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I agree with you. And I think that like coming from the perspective of like you as an individual and like looking for people to hire, you're going to, at least in my opinion, I think that you're going to look at it in a different way that a company looks at it because a lot of these companies do get like, they get like money for like hiring like, you know, a certain demographic, right? So I
I
think
don't
it's a
know
little
enough
bit
about it
different.
to talk about it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
with you 100% when it comes to like obviously getting a like very high it if you had the choice between basically the highest caliber of person with every single person comes from the same demographic, same race, same ethnicity, I'd say you're way better off to have the same caliber of people from like a diverse group because you're going to get diverse ideas and like that's going to basically foster more creativity, more problem solving. You're basically just going to be way better off in general. I just wonder if like that is what's happening or like I don't know. It's hard to know because you know neither of us are behind like the system's doors. Like we're not in HR like knowing exactly what's going on. But yeah, it's definitely something to think about. And I'm definitely with you 100% when it comes to like getting that diversity is obviously a good thing. Like it's hard to make an argument against it, right? If you're ignoring the like level of ability of each individual, right? Like the argument always is like, well, someone's sacrificing level of ability, right? And that's
Mhm.
why it's not as good, right? That, I mean, that's the argument that I just made, right? In a way, but like it's hard to know. It's hard to know, but I think there is at least some evidence, whether you know people want to admit it or not, that some level of like expectations is being lowered in name of, I don't know, making things more fair. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if, enough about it to like say yay or nay to that statement. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's like your boyfriend said too, like he could be searching for the bands, but if they're not there, like that's when, if he was to like pick someone to be on stage, if he's searching and they don't exist and he finally finds one, like would you want him to like pick that band, right? Simply because it was the
I
first
just
one that he stumbled on?
right. My
I'm
perspective
just
is
playing
just
devil's advocate.
find, which is it's cool. I mean, it's like I'm just like saying find, use the end, like just find a way. There are people out there, and just find a way. And it's I think it's just part of the responsibility, you know. But this is what I mean by it's a greater systematic thing. Is that in my perspective that I can speak to, like women aren't as encouraged to do these things and to be risky, and that's maybe why you see less women on stage, or I don't know the full thing, but it's greater than just, I think it's greater than just the things we've mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I would agree. I think it's, in general, I think a lot of these things boil down in conversation to like super simple arguments, but like the reality of it is always much more complicated because each individual is more complicated, right? Like I may say that it's more of a personal responsibility, but like every person is going to have a different upbringing, a different school experience. They may have more or less pressure that you described of like being discouraged at school simply because they're a guy, because they're a girl, in that field. And so like it's very hard to like boil it down to a simple argument, right? Or a simple picture, because at the end of the day, like everyone has all these different aspects, and like the expectations are often just as much like self-imposed. Like you go to therapy and you realize like, oh my god, like a lot of this stuff is inside my head, right? And
Mhm.
you need to deconstruct and like, oh my god, this has to do with my past, even though like I thought it just had to do with this situation at the time. And so people have all these different things going on, and yeah, I think obviously the general arguments that you know simplify things are probably not the best, but interesting for argument's sake, I
I mean,
guess.
it's all interesting stuff to think about. It's all important stuff to think about. I just, again, like I wish I was more educated uh on the topic in terms of like statistics and numbers and how things are actually happening. To say, I don't know, something with more substance, but all I can do, really all we can do is as individuals is when we have our businesses and we're doing our thing and we're being people out in the world, just like try to just be better. Like how can I help the problem? How can I be a solution?
And just being a good person in general too.
Yeah.
Like,
But
yeah,
like past that, it's like, like I should make an effort to make an extra effort to maybe like see who I can have in my band, and see what example I can set and what do I want to set out into the world and for people to see and visualize, and it's cool. But it is something I think about, like I want a backing band. A lot of my friends are male musicians, and like we all happen to really get along well. So there's that piece of it. It's like it's not just so black and white.
yeah.
So I don't know. Again, like catch me in 5 years. I hope to have more answers to all these things.
No, I agree. I agree. I think a lot of these things change. Like you experience your career, and maybe like 5 years down the road, you think of things a totally different way. Speaking of 5 years down the road, let's talk a little bit. Like, I guess we can end this with like, let's go through maybe some of the goals that you have, and um, you know, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Let's start off with that.
In 5 years, I'll be almost 31. I don't know. I've
Oh
hated
Lord.
this thing since middle school. Everyone always asks this question. They're like, where do you want to be? And I've since made my peace with it. I'm like, you know what? This is actually good to think about. One should think about their future. Um, I don't know. I mean, in terms of the person that I want to be somebody who's mentally stable and healthy. Um, and just, like genuinely kind and good to people and try to be as aware as I can be and still not take shit. um, that's kind of on like I don't know, in terms of like where things I want to work on personally, like financially, I would love to be able to have like an emergency vet bill and have it not be really, really stressful. Like that was my life last night. I was just, my dog got hurt and I had, like hundreds of dollars and I'm like, fuck, this hurts. This really hurts. And I would love to be in a place where I don't have to live that way. And I would love for that to happen via my creative interests, whether it's music or a production company or photography. And hopefully all of it, can just all come together in a way that is self-sustaining and real and cool and fun.
Are you more of a short-term goal person or a long-term goal person?
I mean, like how long term are we talking? I think I have a hard time
I don't know.
visualizing too far ahead,
Yeah.
but I think that's okay for right now, and I think that can be worked on.
I actually think that's in general not a bad thing. I think that sometimes when you get caught up, I see a lot of people who get caught up in like long term goals and like forget to just be practicing like good everyday like accomplishment goal setting activities where you can actually set goals that you can actually do, not saying, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be in the Olympics in 15 years." It's like, no. How about you just go to football practice today? Because like you
Yeah.
haven't been all week. Like you're not. How are you gonna go to the Olympics if you don't even you know go today? So you know, I think that in general, like for myself, I'm a big like, let's try to work on today's goal. Let's try to work on this week's goal. Like obviously I think about like long-term goals. I think everyone in a way thinks like, oh, like the 5 year, the 10 year, but I think having those kind of healthy all around personal goals, like you said, of like just basically just being a healthy and good person mentally and physically and like relationship wise and maybe financially stable, like having that as your long term goal and then focusing more on like, and when it comes to maybe my career, let's do what I can do each day to like
Yeah,
do the most movement in that.
I think that's a great way of thinking about it. Because ultimately, I mean, in the end, if you are not happy and you don't have enough connections and enough positive relationships in your life, I mean, it has effects on your health. It has effects on, I mean, your whole life. But that's winning, That's like the best thing you can have. And I think I'm like learning that more and more. And it's just like if you're happy in your career, that's obvious. That's like a great bonus. But it's like the connections that you have in your life are the things that are gonna sustain you on a human level. I think the longest. Again, we will see. But do you think in terms of like thinking about the way you think about goals, do you think your accident has helped you slow down and break it down that way? Did you always think that way, or is that more recent?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't think it really, I don't think it totally changed my perspective on goals, but I think that it enhanced like my focus on the everyday. And I think the
Mhm.
reason for that is basically just, I don't know, it's hard to explain. In general, I have to be more calculated simply because it takes me longer to do things, especially at first. It took me a lot longer to do things. In general, like
Mhm.
what would have taken me, I don't know, 30 minutes or an hour to do previously composing something or work on music at first would take me like 4 or 5 hours or maybe even 2 days, depending on what it was to do that. And now I've gotten much more like efficient in my work, but at first I definitely had a huge kind of wake up call when it came to like how long things were going to take simply because I can't use my hands, right? And like that was like, oh my
Yeah.
god. That was part of the reason why I first was like, oh my god, I'm never going to do anything creative ever again. Like I can't use my
Yeah.
hands and like, oh my god, this sucks. Like but then I realized no, Lucas, that's crazy. Don't say that. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like you can still do stuff. Like you can still the technology that we have now is unbelievable. It allows people like me to literally use the entire computer. I can use voice to text to send every message that I need to send. I can edit things. I can use Ableton. I can use all the applications that I was using before. I can edit things the same way. Like I'm sure like on the computer, like it's literally just like using a mouse and a keyboard. So like if it uses a mouse and a keyboard, I can do it. And yeah, at first it was
Right. Wow.
slow, but like now it's a lot faster now, and like I'm pretty quick with a mouse, even just like using my mouth. But but yeah, I think the accident definitely encouraged me to just think about things in a calculated way, and I think
Hmm.
that fostered a appreciation for the short term goals because it allowed me to really see progress, right? And I
Yeah.
think seeing progress it was I struggled to have motivation, and so to see progress, like I think seeing progress in yourself and also being surrounded by people who are like progressing as well, I think those two things kind of they work hand in hand, and they help kind of encourage good mental goals and good uh, I still have a lot of problems and I still have a lot of things I need to work with when it comes to bad habits. Like
Yeah.
everyone has bad habits, but you
I know
know,
I do.
yeah. But I think the short term goals help with those things a lot. And yeah, I think you're spot on when you picked out that the accident may be part of the reason why. Um, yeah,
I mean, it's just interesting what a huge just shift in perspective, what a crazy experience that
yeah, it's
must be.
wild.
It's I I mean, yeah. I admire your perseverance though, because I know if that was me, I would definitely have like a long struggle period, and I'm sure it's difficult in ways that most people can't understand unless they've been through it. And
Yeah.
yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, 100%. It's difficult to explain, and in a sense, it is different. But I also say, like, in a sense, it's the same. Like, yes, it's like if I was to like, for example, like look at someone who was paralyzed before I was injured, like I would
Mhm.
just think like, oh, that person like they just can't walk and like they can't feel like their body. Like that's what I thought. And like now that I'm paralyzed, I know that like yeah, you can't walk, but like your muscles will still have spasms, right? So your legs may move out of spasticity, and like yes, you can't like feel when someone touches you below your injury level, but that doesn't mean that you're not in like I'm in pretty bad pain like throughout the day,
Mhm.
and like you have phantom pain and nerve pain and like your whole body, and like so there's like expectation or like knowledge before something happens, and then like you get in it and you realize it's either way worse or like not as bad as like you thought it was going to be. So I think there's that aspect to it, but I think at the same time like now that it's going to be coming up on 3 years since my injury. Like I don't look at it as really any different from like it was obviously the hardest thing that I've ever had to do and ever had to experience,
Mhm.
but it's really no different than like just dealing with something that's difficult. Like I don't know. And
Interesting.
it's really hard to explain because like from the outside perspective I could see someone saying and even like some people that are in my situation saying like no like this is like unlike anything else, like this is so bad or whatever it is. But I don't know, for me I really do feel like at this point like, yes, it's bad and like it sucks in a lot of ways, but also I really don't think that I don't consider myself special. I don't think that it's really any different from, you know, any other situation where you have to deal with something that's life changing or deal with something that's difficult. It's just
Yeah,
like you got to persevere. Like everyone has a purpose here. Everyone can do things. Everyone is capable of amazing things and capable of being there for other people in different ways, creating different things. And so I don't know. I think that in a way I'm like thankful that like it happened to me because like I've my perspective has changed in ways that like what it never would have without the injury, to be completely honest.
right. It's just interesting. It's interesting. And I'm sure it's just such a part of who you are now that you just probably can't imagine it otherwise, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. You know, I think about like I'll have dreams where I'll be like walking and it'll feel like foreign almost, but it also feels familiar. It's strange, and it does become part of who you are. I mean, there's definitely. I mean, I used to love. I mean, I was never like the most like into like going out. Like I did like going out with friends, but like especially after school ended, I was kind of like a homebody. I would stay at home a
Mhm.
lot and like simply because I liked work on music and I don't know, a little bit of an introvert when it came to my work. Um, but I think that like being paralyzed and like having that identity change and feeling like, you know, when people are looking at you, they're not really like seeing who you think that you are, who you feel that you are. Like that
Mm.
kind of shift in perspective has been really strange and is definitely still something that I'm dealing with. Like I don't particularly like going out in public, not because like I'm embarrassed to be in a chair, but because like I feel like people look at me and don't see who I am. It's like a
Mhm.
very strange thing, and I, you know, that's obviously something that changes as you're exposed to people outside. But I think that there will always be like a part of me that does not kind of feel right in this situation, if that makes sense.
I mean, the opportunity that might be there though is that you get to educate people and you get to be the experience, you get to kind of shape people and be like, whatever you thought, oh, that's not,
Yeah.
that's wrong, and I'm this person, and this, like, this is who I am. And it's always a neat thing, I think, when at least for me, like, I've had experiences where, yeah, you think something going into an interaction based on maybe something external, and you're like, oh shit, okay, this I was so wrong, and this is so cool. And yeah, yeah. I mean, thank you for sharing that. It's just interesting.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. I mean, I know that this interview is about you, but you know, if you ever have any questions, like I encourage like that's one of the things that I can give, right? Is
Yeah.
my experience and like just knowing it's a weird situation and like it's not something that a lot of people know about or think about normally because like I mean like I don't know. People think that a lot of other quote unquote minorities or identities are like hidden, but like I can tell you, having been like in this experience, that like there's no more like misunderstood like group of people than like people who've been like paralyzed in an accident. It's like a very very strange group of people and
Hmm.
like with very unique and weird mental and like social experiences. It's very odd. It really is. Like it's very very odd. So
Oh, yeah,
got
it's
a little.
fascinating to hear about, like, just in, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's something that I know anything about other than what
Yeah.
I've seen and what I've read about, and what people like you have told me. And yeah,
Do you have any questions?
I don't know. I didn't realize that you didn't have use of your hands.
Yeah. Yeah, I can move like my arms.
That we're using them now.
I can move my arms, but I can't like move my fingers. So,
Oh, interesting.
So it's just like kind of like, it's there. And like I'll use it to
Huh.
like touch the iPad because I can still move my arm, right?
Right.
Even in my arm, like, so I say I can move my arms, I can actually only control my biceps and my shoulder
I was
muscles.
gonna ask if it interesting.
So I can't actually like, your tricep is what like counteracts the bicep to like push your arm away instead of like pulling it forward. Like this
Okay.
is like going like very like, physical and technical, whatever. But like I can't like really push anything away. Like I let gravity
Mm.
like have my arms fall down, but like my tricep doesn't function, right? And it's funny when you're like, this is a very like quadriplegic kind of like thing to ask, but when you'll see someone in a wheelchair and like you'll see that they're paralyzed like below the arms or like part of their arms, like you'll ask them like triceps or nah, because
Oh,
like
really?
it's like the different, it's like a huge differentiating thing because it does change, it changes like the whole way that you are able to like do things. And like yeah, it's a very strange injury because like each vertebrae basically, depending on which vertebrae you break, it basically changes what parts of your body you can control or not. And
Okay.
so like the higher or lower it is, like the worse off or better off. I mean, I say worse off or better off. Really, the more or less that you're able to control post injury.
Okay.
And so yeah, I'm C4. So that's like the, C4 vertebrae. And so like I have control over basically 1 through 4, and then like C5 through basically the rest of my spine. I don't have control over like any of that stuff. So it's like, uh, so it's, yeah, I can like breathe with like my diaphragm, but I don't have control over like certain parts of my lungs. And
Interesting.
um, so like
For
when
your
I
spine,
breathe,
like you need an assisted breathing something.
so I was on the vent for the first like month,
Okay.
and I was on a tube and I couldn't speak. And
Wow.
then I got off the vent and I like started speaking in rehab again to relearn how to speak. Um,
Completely.
yeah, I had to
What is
relearn how to
that
speak. Like
like?
I still knew how to use words, but like I had to basically relearn how to use the vocal cords. Um, and my I had to relearn how to use the biceps because like the signals just like don't aren't going to the biceps anymore. The voice I had to relearn because of the trach. I had a tube put like through my neck, so it was like that's why I couldn't speak.
Is your voice different now than it was before?
No, it's the same.
Okay, because I'm like, how does that? What does sound like? I wonder if you had to relearn how to use it, but I
It's
guess it's the same instrument. So
Yeah, no, it's yeah, it's the same, and it's not like, I think maybe relearn is probably the wrong word. It's like it's more like reacquaint yourself with it because you know what it's supposed to feel like, and you know what you sound like, and you know the words, and you kind of know
hmm
how to speak, but like your body isn't like responding, or like it's not like doing, I don't know, it's quite difficult to explain, but
that is
it really,
really interesting.
yeah.
Wow. Huh.
So, but yeah,
Wow.
the injury itself is like, it is just like a unique like injury. And like I think any kind of injury with the spine always has these weird repercussions with like, uh there's this thing called AD, autonomic dysreflexia, which is like, if I if I have to like go to the bath, like if I have to pee, right? Like I don't feel that I have to pee, but I can like feel it like in my head. Like it's like there are all these things that are like totally, that I totally didn't know before I was injured, that are just like so foreign. Like the idea of it is like alien to a regular person. It's just like, what is that?
So
Like,
it's
what do
hard
you
for
mean?
someone to conceptualize like what you feel
Yeah.
like you have to pee in your head feels like. Like,
Yeah,
and you mean like
exactly.
in your thoughts, or like do you mean like physically somewhere in your,
No, like physically. Yeah.
is it in your head, like
Yeah.
in your brain, or like
No, like you know what a headache feels like, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
you feel. Oh my gosh, that is yeah. I would have never
Yeah,
known
so
that.
it's like there's literally like stuff like that, which is just like, it's foreign, right? It's not like, it's not a normal thing, and so like it's it's just a very it's just odd. the whole experience is really just odd. Like the best way for me to describe it is like it's not even that it's bad. It's just very very odd. The whole thing. It is.
Wow.
But you know, it's cool to see like people, like I don't want to say myself, but like in general, just like people make something after they've been in my situation, just
Yeah.
because like it can be very like isolating and unmotivating, and just like you said with like seeing a girl who's recording, you know, something with a camera, and like she looks like she really has it figured out, or she's really focused or whatever it is, and you know, to see someone who's not just like looking like a hospital patient, but someone that looks like they're, you know, well dressed and they kind of like have their life together and maybe they're actually doing something with themselves. Like seeing those kind of things is like, I don't know, motivating. And I think it's good to see uh, people in my situation who aren't just kind of famous or, you know, making it simply because they're in a wheelchair, right? I like seeing
It
people
makes
that
it
are
interesting.
making it because they're like they've done something too, you know. I don't know.
But I at least, well, okay, maybe this is weird of me to say, but it does, at least from like my mind, it's an interesting element in the fact that you can do all of this because it's from my perspective, I'm like, wow, this is, it's hard for me to imagine doing that if I were in that position, even though I can't relate to it. But I think that's why people find find interest in it. Where I totally see what you're saying, where it's like there's the merit of doing the thing itself, but here's this challenge that this person had to overcome, and that's really interesting for some of us, you know.
No, I agree. Actually, now that you say it like that, and it reminds me of like when you were saying about when I asked about, you know, working while you were going to school and like what you thought about it, and you're like, well, I didn't think about it. Like that's
Yeah,
just like I didn't
yeah,
have the choice, and because I
yeah,
didn't have the choice, like that's what I did. Like that's kind of how I think about this. It's like I don't have a choice. So for me,
yeah.
it's like, well, what can I do with it? You know? And so yeah, it's just it is weird, but it's motivating to see. It is motivating to see people just talk about things, I guess. I don't know. I guess it's different from like the perspective of someone who's, I mean, everyone thinks about things a little bit differently, I guess. So it's hard to know.
But you would never know some of these things, and it, you know, it kind of comes back to, you know, just like you're saying, like, oh, like you would never guess that I can, like, when I have to pee, I feel it kind of as a headache. I feel it in my head.
Yeah.
I would never know that because I've never been in your shoes and in your experience. And, you know, like it's, everybody has some version of that. And that spills into different groups. Like I might say, like, you would never guess, but like as a woman that faced this thing, you might say, like, oh, really? That's a
I'd say,
dynamic I
oh
would
no,
never
I've never heard of
imagine.
that before.
You know, like I would never imagine that that is something you would hear or you would have to deal with just because you have like a female body and I don't know, I think it's I think we all need to keep in mind that there's some people just don't know and they don't realize.
Yeah, and the education part is good. I think that's a good takeaway, like in general. Basically, like everything we've been talking about, like education for, you know, it basically helps everything, like true education on people's situations, on the possibilities of what people can do, like the dangers of, you know, dangers of social media. Doesn't matter what it is, like just education will solve like a lot of problems. And like good parenting, good education, good mentoring,
An open mind is
open
really,
mind.
you
Yeah.
know, because if you're not there for it, like the kind of therapy I do now, I feel like, you know, 4 years ago, I maybe wouldn't have been ready for it. I would have been like, "Ooh, this sounds like a little like, sounds like a little out there." And now I do it, and it's been the best thing I've done for myself almost my whole life. Like you have to just have an open mind on top of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
life is weird.
you mentioned that you wouldn't have been ready for it a few years ago,
Hmm.
but do you think that at some point, like I think that I think that people's open like the ability for someone to have an open mind does increase as they get older, but I think at a point then it starts to kind of regress. Do you think there's like some sweet spot? Like,
I mean, I wonder. I think I wonder, is it something that you practice and you kind of get better at, or is it something that kind of happens to you with the more people that you meet and the more places that you go that challenge each other?
yeah,
Um, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like some of the best, funnest, youngest people I know are like not even our age. They're like in their 50s, living their best life, having open minds and adventures and all of that. So I don't necessarily know that it regresses. I think if you I'm sure there's a certain level of once you're there and you can't really go back. But
yeah,
again, environments, I don't know. I mean, if I spent long enough in an environment with the same thing all the time, I probably would like regress a little bit. But I'm also the type of person that doesn't want to do that to themselves.
yeah,
So it's like I think there's multiple like facets there.
yeah. And probably, yeah, like you said, like if you're the kind of person that's in an environment that's constantly challenging their mind to think in more open ways or in, different problem solving skills, you're probably going to keep adapting as you get older. But then if you like, yeah, if you end up in a situation where, which is probably more common for a lot of people once they hit a certain ages, to be in a static environment, especially like if you have kids and, if you have a 9 to 5, it's probably much more common um,
Yeah,
to be in,
yeah.
yeah. Um, I guess one last thought I have is, and it has to actually do with the 9 to 5, but like, do you do you ever like regret being in like a gig industry?
I know it, but I'm in an interesting phase where I have a bunch of part-time jobs that aren't photo. Like right now, I would say the last like what are we, April? The last like 3 months, which is not much time. I've gotten a job at Cornell part-time doing the concert series, like doing some advertising and PR stuff for that. And that's like more of like a jobby job. It's not full time, but there's that. I nanny, I clean. I've been taking on these little things because work was just so slow in the winter that I was like, okay, this is not working. Um, and it's I guess in a way it's kind of like gig work, but it's just like it's too many things. It's too many things, and it's suffocating time away from the photo and the film stuff and like all the freelance stuff that is like now that it's spring and summer's coming, like there's more hours for it. So um, sorry, that's like a really long way to answer. Like, I don't regret it at all, but you also have to be able to find a balance between all the things.
Yeah, I feel like you must be pretty good at like managing your time.
I don't know. Lately, I've kind of realized that like all those little things that am doing to like, basically equate to a full-time job. It's too much. And when you're spread too thin, I think everything kind of lessens. Um, but whatever, I did it and I tried it out, and my theory is right that like working, I don't know how people work a full-time job and then gig on the side. I, I'm sure it's possible, but for me, I don't think I could do it. When it comes to if you're just gonna freelance, because I've had times, like it comes and it goes. I've had times where I'm like mostly freelancing, and yeah, you just have to be able to manage your time and your finances and know your self-worth in a way that can be hard to find sometimes. And just if you're someone who like gives up easily, like just don't do it. This is not the job for you. Like you
Yeah,
have to be willing to persevere because it can be really draining sometimes.
yeah, for sure. And a lot of people say no, like, especially in
You
like the
know,
creative fields. It's a lot of no's. So if you can't deal with it, it's probably not the best place for you.
yeah, I mean it's tough. I mean, it depends. I think it depends on what your creative thing is, but yeah, you just have to kind of be able to be your own advocate. I think that's the hardest thing. If you're when you're setting your prices for things, you have to be able to be your own advocate. It can be tricky and it takes Like I haven't worked out all the kinks yet.
Yeah.
There's still like I've said it before in this interview, I'll say it again. Like catch me in like 5 to 10 years and like hopefully I'm in a more just in a different place where I have more solid answers and can tell you exactly what to do. But I'm still figuring it out.
Well, hey, I mean, regardless, it was a pleasure talking with you today. I mean, we went through like all sorts of different topics, and like obviously, yeah, sure, you're relatively speaking, new to your career, but I think that there's value in seeing people's perspectives and like every aspect of their career, in every age, whether it's like an 18-year-old that's still in school, kind of navigating what they're going through, or a young adult, basically fresh in their career, or someone who's older who's been there a little bit longer. Kind of everyone has obviously their own perspective and their own unique takeaways that they've had, and so it was honestly a pleasure talking with you. And obviously we like kind of knew each other before, but like it was good to like actually get to know you, like
Yeah.
well. And
I know this is like our first like long form conversation,
yeah,
which is cool.
exactly. And I'm a big fan of long form conversations too. Like that's part of the reason why I started this is not because I'm trying to be a podcast or anything. I just like want to make myself like have long form conversations with people, and why not share that with like other people if there's value in it. So
Yeah, I like it. I love conversations. I like hearing people in conversation too. And maybe that's like my last little tidbit of like advice is just talk to people, like talk to people that I am the youngest person in the room a lot of the time. It's weird, like I'll be older someday and then that won't be the case, but it's been the case for years. And there's a lot to learn from people that have been doing the thing longer than you and just ask questions and listen and but just know like nobody's fully right about everything, but some people have also done know what they're talking about. Some people don't.
yeah,
I don't know. Just
yeah,
take it with a grain of salt is what I'm trying to say.
exactly. Have an open mind, but take it with a grain of salt. I love it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And yeah, I guess we'll be, looking out on your Instagram, seeing what you're up to when it comes to your creative stuff,
Yeah.
because you're always doing some really cool stuff. So I'll be sure to have that below, like the video description, all that. But thank you so much for coming on. It was
Yeah.
really
Thank
fun.
you. Thanks for talking. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, have a good day and hope we get to chat again.
Yeah, awesome.